Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome. In case you don't know, we are at the Power Track where we're going to be talking about money. It's true. So my name is Nick Deck. I am the youth pastor over with Winona Lake Church, and I've been there for about for 21 years now. And this, for a little bit of context, this is, I think, my 29th Momentum. So there you go. That's a little bit about me.
My name is Ryan Bowell, and I am the president and CEO of Grace Financial. So Grace Financial is a church extension fund. So we loan money to churches and ministries, and investors like you can put their money with us, and we take that and we make loans for ministry, basically. So we're talking about biblical stewardship. You can imagine, I think that this is super important. Unfortunately, this is a topic that you don't hear very often in church. You're not going to hear it preached from the pulpit very often. There are reasons for that, but it's underreported. But I think it is. Nick and I both think it's super important spiritually. So we're going to get started with a question. Okay, here's the question: how did you get here? And we're not asking how did you physically get here? Whether you drove or took a plane or rode a bike, but how did you pay to get here? Okay, so I jumped on the Momentum website and was looking at registration this week, and this conference is not cheap, right? You probably it's a good conference, but it's not a cheap conference. You probably had somebody take you here, probably had a meal on the way. I know that a number of you flew here. Some of you drove a long way. So this, all in getting here, I'm going to guess, probably close to $700 on average for everyone to be here. And I heard yesterday that there's over 2,600 kids at this conference. So if you do quick math, that's about $2 million, okay? So that number, that's not nothing, right? $2 million, that's a big deal. Nick, do you want to talk about $2 million and what that represents?
I do. So, question for you. Who, a lot of money, more than I have as a youth pastor. Surprising, I know. Who here, you paid to come to Momentum all on your own? Like, you have a job, you work, you paid it all on your own. Okay, 5 of you? Okay. The rest of you, I'm assuming, raise your hand if you did some kind of work project, fundraiser, family or friend or parent, someone else paid and helped support you. That's the rest of us, right? Otherwise you snuck in and you didn't pay at all. So somewhere along the line, someone had to take this idea of stewardship and money seriously enough to handle their resources to make it so you could get here. This money matters because because other people handled their resources well. They could help support and pay for you to come and be part of this. Otherwise, there would literally only be 5 of you in this room right now. Without other people doing this, there would only be 5 of you in here. The rest of us couldn't have made it. That's pretty intense. So this is where, practically speaking, finances, resources, stewardship, money, it matters in practical ways all the time. And often we just don't slow down enough to consider it. So we want to help us slow down and really think today, what does this kind of stuff mean? How do we think about this? How should we think about this? And what does the Bible say about it?
Okay, so we're talking about biblical stewardship. Okay, so stewardship, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So when you hear the word stewardship, let's get a working definition for stewardship. Does anyone want to take a stab at, using the resources that God gave you properly? I like it. I can roll with that. What else? Stewardship. What do you think of? quiet group here. Come on. Okay, consistency and faithfulness. Yeah, that's definitely a component of stewardship. Yep. Okay. In charge of something that's not yours. All of those are close. I think we can encapsulate them all and just say, like, you're managing somebody else's stuff. That's how I define stewardship. So I want to use like the illustration of this three-legged stool for biblical stewardship. And three-legged stool has three supporting legs. And I want to say that the first part of biblical stewardship is time. So God, He owns your time. So the Bible talks about that He's ordained your days. He knows your beginning. He knows your end. Acts chapter 17 talks about like He chose the time that you were going to live in the history of the world, and He even picked like where you were going to live. So God, He owns your time. But here's the thing, like every day, all of us, everybody in this room has 24 hours to spend that time any way you want, right? So like if you want to take a nap, read a book, play golf, play a video game, you get to choose how you steward or manage that time. But God owns that time. So the next leg on the stool, we'll say, is your talent. Okay, so the Bible talks about, Psalm 139 talks about how God formed you in the womb. And He gave you gifts and He gave you talents and skills. So He also says, lost my train of thought here. Well, here's the idea. So He wants you to use those skills and abilities in the church. So as believers, He's also given you, He's like supernaturally given you a gift that you can use to serve the local church. But here's the thing. You may have the best voice in the world. If you don't join the church choir, you're not using your gift. Okay? So God has given you the gift, but He allows you to manage and steward your gifts in any way that you see fit. And then finally, treasure. Okay, the Bible is super clear on this one. There's 2,000 scriptures on money in the Bible. We're only going to talk about a few today, but God says in Scripture, I own it all. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He says that the gold is mine, the silver is mine. It's all His. Okay, but here's the rub again. So, like, if you have how many of you have a part-time job? Just curious. So, okay, so, payday happens, you get this chunk of money. God does not tell you how you're supposed to spend that money, right? Like, He doesn't make you do it. You get to manage those finances the way you have complete freedom, okay? But He says, He owns it all, but He gives you the ability to manage. So biblical stewardship, the seed truth is, God owns it all, and you are His manager. Now, let's be real honest about stewardship, okay? Every one of us in this room, if we are not careful, we tend to think of these three things as being ours, okay? Like my money. I know how I can feel. If I'm not careful, I know how I can feel about the money that I make. Like, I spend a lot of time, it's hard work, and I want to spend it the way I want to spend it. Time, there are times where, like, I come home from work and I'm tired, and there are things that I probably should do but I don't want to do. So there's this constant tension in biblical stewardship where God owns it, we have to manage it, and this is what we're going to talk about this morning. So one last slide here. So this is a Venn diagram, and it has the three components of biblical stewardship: time, talent, and treasure. So the idea here that I want to plant a seed that you want to be growing in all three of these areas continually, okay? So if you neglect one, it's going to affect the others, and I'll try to illustrate that. So like the Bible talks about, it says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be, okay? So like if you're not investing your treasure, your money, in God's kingdom, your heart is not going to follow. Okay? And if your heart is not in it, then you're likely not going to, use your talents in church or spend time reading God's word or praying or things like that. So, or I'll state it positively. Like if you do use your time or your talents in the church, you're serving in youth group, you're seeing people get saved, discipled, baptized, you get excited. Do you think you're going to be more inclined to give your finances generously if you're serving in the church? The answer is yes, of course. So again, all of these are integrated. You're not going to run out ahead and only focus on one of these, or if you do, it will be to the detriment of the others. Okay, so biblical stewardship is an integrated thing. So here are the three again, but unfortunately, we only have time to talk about treasure today. Okay, you could spend an hour on time, talent. We're focusing in on the money aspect.
Okay. I asked for some volunteers earlier, so can you 6 come up? Got 2 sets of 3. So coming up right now, it's your time to shine. Guys are going to be on this side, is that right? And then got 3 girls are going to be over here. Okay. So this will be nice. So what's going to happen is we're going to explore this concept, this idea between an owner versus a steward or manager. Right, an owner, like Ryan said, is going to be thinking of things like this is mine. Like this is the perspective that the world teaches us, and how we should see resources, especially finances and things like that. And then this other side, the steward or the manager, this is going to represent ideally what we believe God is calling us to, and the kind of mindset we should have. So what's going to happen is I'm going to pop a phrase up here. And the owner's going to they're going to have a few seconds to deliberate and say, hey, who's going to read this one and how are you going to read it? And then we're going to have the same thing for the steward or the manager. Make sense? Okay, so owners, here's your first one.
This is mine. I earned it. I control it.
Okay, so this idea that it's all ours, just like Ryan talked about, right? We can do what we want with it. We have control of it. These are our resources. And the steward?
God, I'm managing it on his.
So there's obviously a stark difference here between someone who, this idea of, I control all of this, I do what I want, versus this is God's, I'm managing it, I'm representing him in the way I use it. That's what a manager does. Okay, the next one.
I focus on personal gain, comfort, or preferences.
Okay, so this idea of spending our resources on whatever we want to make ourselves comfortable, to have fun, to do the American dream, right? And a steward?
God, give me wisdom for what you would like me to do.
So instead of just spending it however we want, we should be taking our resources before God and asking God, hey, what should I do with these resources? So how many, I know Ryan asked, but I want to see, I was sitting down. How many people have a part-time job in here? Okay, well over half. We should be going to God with seeking wisdom. God, how do you want me to spend this money that you've given me? These resources are yours. What do you want me to do with it? Okay, managers? Owners?
I use resources for personal goals, desires, or legacy.
So this idea that we want to, again, pursue what we want and pass on this legacy. Look how awesome I am. I got so much money in my life that I paid to build a 40-foot honey badger. I don't know, whatever, right? This idea that we want to pass on our legacy of wealth and use our resources for our big personal goals, okay? Stewards.
God, help me align what you're giving me.
So this helps us see and think through, God, what is your purpose here? And we know that God's purpose, it's going to be kingdom building, like Ryan talked about. God is going to want us to use our resource to help further his kingdom, not further our own kingdom, not... Okay. Not further our own kingdom, but we want to further God's kingdom. Not to make a name for ourselves, to make a name for him. Okay.
I
do what I want, and I'm only accountable to myself.
Okay, so this idea, again, we don't have to be accountable to anyone. It's my money. Like Ryan said, I earned it. It's your job. You put the work in. You put the time in. You put the sweat in. Right? You got the blisters. It's your money. You should be able to do whatever you want.
My answer to God, He is the true owner.
And again, this idea that it's all God's. He is the one that owns it all. He owns it all. What does He want us to do with it? We're accountable to Him.
Having things and money gives me control and security.
So often, the more stuff we have, the bigger and nicer our house is, the bigger and nicer our car is. Like, we get this sense of like security and safety and like this sort of like protection buffer from, I don't even know what we're trying to protect ourselves from. But it gives us a sense of control, like, oh, this is mine, I can control it, and the sense of like security and safety as we like just pile up worthless stuff around ourselves. But this is what like Western American culture really teaches big time, is that you need these things to be safe. You need these things to feel good about yourselves. You need these things to be secure. But
I trust God for the not as
we should be going to God for our sense of safety and trusting in God's sovereignty for Him to provide for us, for Him to provide what we actually really need, our true needs, especially our spiritual needs. And we should be a channel for God's resources, not collecting it all to make ourselves feel better, to feel safe, to feel secure. I should say the more I have.
The more I have, the less I have. It is a loss to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, the more I give. The more I give. Try again.
The more I give, the less I have. It is a loss to me.
So the more I give, the less this is like this concept that as we give, we're like, I don't want to give because it's mine. If I give it away, then I can't have it. Then I can't spend it. Then I can't use it. Then I can't get all that Starbucks. Then I can't like have this nicer car. Then I can't get these shoes I really want. Then I can't go see these movies. Whatever it is, when we give things away, we consider it a loss. We're like, well, then it's not mine. I don't get to have it if I give it away. What's the point of that? So giving should be an act of faith. We give generously, and we'll talk about tithe here in a minute. We want to give. It's an act of worship. It's one way that we can worship God. Actually, Ryan and I were talking with Keith, who's next door sharing, and this is one of his points about like 5 spiritual like growth points. One of them is exactly what we're talking about here today. This idea that giving and handling our resources well is and should be an act of worship. And it is an honor to give. And we got one more.
This is all mine. I can do what I want with it.
Again, just a reflection. If this is what's going on in our hearts, we need to be honest with ourselves. Because what God is calling us to is this.
I walk in humility, thankfulness, and
What's
open-handedness.
open-handedness? That's not a phrase we use very often. What's it mean to hold something with an open hand? What do you got? Nice and loud.
More giving, like giving.
Okay. Anybody else? What would you say? Yeah.
An open hand is compared to a clenched fist, so if you have money in your hand and it's open, it's willing to be given out.
Yeah. Sometimes we want to hold onto our things with a tight, closed fist, like fine. But if we have it with an open hand, we're ready and willing to give it away, to share it, to offer it to others. We're holding it with an open hand. Okay, you guys did great. Thank you. Give them a hand. Have a seat. You guys are awesome. Thanks for your reading. So I want us to really consider, what is this difference between a selfish owner that think that we own it all versus the idea of managing or stewarding what God has given us.
All right, let's go ahead and we're going to look at Scripture. So some biblical principles. So we got a volunteer queued up to read 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 11. I know it says 7, but it's 6 through 11. So just a second here. So When you're talking about biblical stewardship, generosity, giving, 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, in my opinion, like this is the passage that you go to. It is there's generosity written all over it. Go ahead and read it loud and strong.
This I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. He who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. So let each one give as purposes in his heart, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. God is able to make all grace abound toward you, always having all sufficient, all things may have abundance for every good work. As it is written, he who first abroad, he has given his righteousness yours forever. Now may he supply seed to the sower, and bread for food, supply and multiply the seed you have sown, increase the fruits of your righteousness, while you are enriched in everything for all around, which causes thanksgiving to us.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so you should hear generosity in that passage. It's mentioned several times, but we serve a generous God, right? So we talked about earlier how He's given us our time, He's given us our talent, He's given us our treasure. He's given us Himself, right? He's given us salvation. He's gracious with us. He's merciful. He's given us so much. And because of that, we need to be generous as well. And that's what 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9 is about. He's talking to the Macedonians saying, you got to be generous, okay? Now, there's a lot of lessons, even in that short little passage that you read. I'm only going to mention 2, okay? So the first one's pretty obvious. God wants you to be generous, right? He wants you to be a cheerful giver. He was generous with us. We have to be generous as believers, okay? That's the first lesson. The second one is, when you are generous, He's going to meet your financial need. You may not have caught it in there, but He said that He will meet your needs, but He will also increase your store of seed and your harvest of righteousness. Okay, now do not hear me say, like, this is not health and wealth. I'm not a prosperity gospel preacher, but I'm telling you, when you are generous with God, He will be generous with you. And the math may not work, like dollar for dollar, you give this money away, but I'm telling you, God will bless you and make the ends meet when you are generous. Okay, so Malachi chapter 3 talks about this, where God says, bring in the tithe. Test me in this. He says, test me in this and see if I don't throw open the storehouses and bless you. Okay? So, 2 principles. Be generous with God, and when you are generous with God, He will meet your financial needs.
Yeah, okay. So we are going to talk about, we're going to keep talking about money. So right here we've got 100 $1 bills, okay? And this is going to represent maybe what you make in a month. It's 100, so it's a nice round number, easy to work with, okay? So put this over here. So Ryan and I believe that the Bible teaches clearly and that God is calling us to, at minimum, give a tithe of our resources, of our money. What is it? How much is a tithe? Yeah, just yell it out. 10%, right? Okay, what's 10% of 100? Oh, math is so easy. Yay. This is my favorite kind of math. So 10%, that's 10 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's the tithe. That's what Ryan and I believe God is calling us minimally to give with the resources that God has given us, okay? That is our tithe. And this tithe goes to the local church, the church that you're a part of, the church that your family is a part of, the church that is helping disciple you, raise you, train you, equip you. That's where this tithe goes. Make sense? Okay. And then so often we think, well, Now that that's taken care of, I can do whatever I want with this. And it's all ours, right? But, and also the gel pack. But to be a good steward, God has called us to use this in certain ways. So some other things that we spend our money on, if you have a car, that's going to cost money, insurance and gas. If you have, as you grow up and have a family, you're going to have house payments, house insurance, medical bills are going to come up. A kid might need braces. At this point in your life, if any of you ever want to go to college, that's the rest of it. And like suddenly, it's all used up. It's all there. And depending on how we manage our resources, what we do with this depends on what's kind of left over for us to be generous with and be able to use. Because if we're spending all of our resources on a nicer car than we need to, on more nicer clothes than we need to, way more Starbucks than you ever actually need, which is none, by the way. If we're spending all our resources on ourselves, then we don't have anything left to be generous with. Because remember, that 10% tithe, that's not generosity. That's what God has required and called us to. That's not generosity. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But if we're spending all these things on ourselves, then we've got nothing left to offer. Those of you that all of you except the 5 that paid your own way to Momentum, if everyone lived this way, you wouldn't be here because no one would have resources to be generous for you. So we have to figure out what do we cut out? How do we steward our resources so that we can have some things left over? So that when someone comes to you and says, man, like this medical accident happened, someone passed away and now there's this big need, or there's an accident, or someone loses a job, something happens, or a car breaks down, something comes up, so that we can have resources, we can say, I can help with that. I can be generous with what I have and offer what I have to others out of love and stewardship with what God has given me. I'm going to tell you a small story. There was a time in my life where I was living well below the poverty line. I was working part-time in the church as a youth pastor. Surprise, surprise. And I was living on like maybe $7,000 a year. Like it is not a lot. I rented a small apartment with 2 other guys, and we had a cat. It was a lovely time. But the point is, I wasn't even making enough money once I was paying rent. Once with my $6,000, I was absolutely still tithing through that because I fully believe in tithing and obeying God, even when you have little. So after my tithe and rent and utilities, and I didn't have a car actually, and I didn't have enough for food either. But it was all used up. And I had friends, out of their generosity, they would invite me over to their house and they would feed me because they knew I didn't have enough resources on my own at that time in my life. Out of their generosity, I was able to rely on them, and they helped me through that financially difficult time. And I didn't even have a car then. Well, I did, but it broke and I had no resources to fix it. So that got trashed. But someone, out of their generosity, that was at the church, knew I walked everywhere and knew my financial state. They actually donated a church to the car. Flip that around. They donated a car to the church to give to me, so I no longer had to walk everywhere. Like, that was amazing. Because of their generosity. My life has been affected greatly by generosity, and I'm so thankful. One more story. I got married 15 or so years ago, and it was right after I kind of got out of that. I just started making a little bit more money, and obviously my wife and I needed a place to live. She didn't want to live with Curtis and Barnabas and our cat. Weird, right? So I went to a bank to try to get a loan to buy a house. I found a house. It was a real fixer-upper. It needed a lot of help. So it was pretty cheap. So I went to a bank to try to get a loan to buy a house. Guess what they told me? They basically laughed and said, like, no, stop. Why you go away? We're never giving you a loan for this. You have no resources, barely an income. No. But I had a friend who had been stewarding his money well for years. And I didn't know. He was living very, very much below his means. He could have had a very nice house, a very nice car, several of them, boats, whatever. But he didn't. And I was really good friends with this guy. I had no idea. He said, hey, Nick, when the banks turn you away, I was like, come on, man. He's like, when they turn you away, come talk to me. I was like, okay, like, do you know someone that works at the bank? Whatever. So I did. I went to him and he said, Nick, here's what I can do. He said, I'm going to give you an interest-free loan of $75,000 to buy this house and fix it up. And once you've done that, then mortgage that house for $75,000 and you can pay me back once it's fixed up and ready and done. Because he stewarded well, he had $75,000 that he could just give me interest-free out of his own generous heart. This is amazing. This is amazing. Guys, God calls us to steward our resources well, not so we can have more, so we can build it up, so we can have bigger storehouses. No, he calls us to steward well so we can represent his generosity and love and what he's done for us with our financial resource and what he's given us. So because that guy was able to steward so well, he could be so generous in other people's lives. And I'm so thankful for that. So thankful. So how we handle our money and resources matters so much and can affect so many people when we steward God's resources well.
You're on this side, I think.
Oh, got to switch. Thank
Yep.
you. Ladder time.
Okay, so if we serve a generous God, and I think we established that we do, then I want to submit to you that everybody in this room needs to be on a generosity journey. Okay, so we want to use this ladder up here to illustrate what the that's nice, Nick.
Thank you.
What the generosity journey can look like. Okay, so there's different levels, and these are different levels of giving. Okay, so you have to start the journey eventually, and the first rung on the ladder is the initial giver. Okay, so I want to stop right here and just say, now, I'm guessing that there's a number of you in this room who have never made that first gift to the local church. And if you haven't done that, that's a huge deal. When you make that first gift to the local church, that is in my mind, that is a spiritual milestone of sorts, where you're beginning the journey, you're starting the journey, but you're setting spiritual things in motion. You're being generous with God, and I think good things are going to happen. So if you have never made that initial gift, pray about doing that. Good things will happen. But so when you're on this rung in the ladder, you've made your first gift. You're new to giving. Oftentimes it's random. You may give randomly, occasionally. It's more of an afterthought. It might be an emotional gift. You hear something and it touches your heart and you want to give towards it, but it's something it's not really on your radar most of the time. So to start the journey, you got to do that initial gift, and then the next level is the consistent giver. Okay, so you've made your first gift. Now you begin to give on a regular basis. Okay, so you might actually even start, your budget. You may even budget for giving, but you're thinking I'm going to get paid this Friday. I'm going to get paid at the end of the month, and I'm going to give X amount of dollars away. But it becomes part of your financial rhythm. The next level is the intentional giver. Okay, and so Nick said this with the table illustration. So we both believe like this is the level of obedience that God is calling us to. Minimally is the tithe. Okay, so when you tithe, you're planning your giving based on a proportion of your income. So 10%, it could be more, but it's like I've made X amount of dollars and you're given 10% right off the top to the local church. So this level views giving, it's a priority. So it's not an afterthought. It's definitely regular, it's consistent. But this is something like Nick was saying where, even when he was only making $7,000 or $6,000, like tithing was a priority. Even though the math of his situation, it wasn't going to work. He still tithed. Okay, sacrificial giver. Okay, you're getting up there.
Yeah.
Rarefied air. So this one it's a little self-explanatory, but the sacrificial giver is giving sacrificially. They are going above and beyond the tithe. And when you give sacrificially, this is, you're going to start having conversations with God like, I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I'm going to give generously, and I don't know how this is going to end up, but I'm going to trust in you through this giving to make the ends meet. Okay, so I mentioned in 2 Corinthians earlier, I do believe that God will increase your store of seed when you are generous with Him. Okay, and this is the type of giving that we're talking about. When Paul wrote to the Macedonians in 2 Corinthians, they were giving sacrificially. This was not a wealthy church. They were giving out of their poverty. But God said, I'm going to meet your needs. And I think your example, Nick, the guy, like, how many times has somebody offered to basically help you buy a house? Not very often, but that is a perfect example of, like, you were giving sacrificially. The math did not work, but then God stepped in and He provided a solution for his housing. And when you are generous at this level with God, I will guarantee you that you're going to see Him work in your life in ways that you have not seen before. And your trust in God will increase. So, you might be sitting here thinking, wow, 10%, that's a huge amount. Look into the sacrificial giving level too, okay? Because this is where you're going to enter into another relationship with God, and good things can happen. And then finally, the extravagant giver.
Yeah.
So the extravagant giver, this is a person that lives to give. They see themselves as kind of a financial conduit for God. So like money's coming in, and they're just cranking it out. So comes in the door, goes out the door, and they are looking like, how can I bless other people? They're giving large amounts to the local church. They're probably involved in international missions, local missions, random acts of kindness. They know people, their car breaks down, they help them out, whatever it is. But the extravagant giver is somebody who, like, they live to give. How many of you know of an extravagant giver that's in your church? Like, somebody comes to mind? Yeah. Like, don't we all love an extravagant giver? Like, there's such an encouragement, not because you're on the receiving end of that, but just that it's a blessing to see somebody being used by God and using their resources to advance His kingdom. All right, Nick, why don't you help us think through some things?
I will. So I'll go back one more time. So this last point about being anonymous, that's often extravagant givers, like, remember the manager-owner mindsets. They're not in it for themselves to make a legacy. That gentleman that gave me $75,000 to buy a house, he made me promise I would never tell who it was. The only other person that knows that he did that is my wife. Nobody knows because he's not in it for himself. He's in it to honor God with what he's given him. That's awesome. That's so cool. And it really shows, I think, his heart in his generosity. I love that. Okay, now let's go on.
All right.
Thanks, Ryan. So let's do some self-assessment. Where are you on this ladder? Really think about your resources, what you're doing with the money you're making, and what you've been given. Have you done an initial gift? Have you started giving consistently? Are you at the level that we believe God has called all of us to, with actually tithing and giving back that 10%? And I said it earlier, but I want to be clear. This tithe doesn't go to a parachurch organization. Like that tithe isn't for building wells in Africa. It's not for an orphanage in Uganda. It's not for even Momentum. Like this tithe is to go to your local church. They're investing in you. They're discipling you. They're there for your wedding, funerals, when life gets hard, when things are great and fabulous. They're the church that is discipling you. That's where our tithe goes. Make sense? And then sometimes this other giving can go other places, absolutely. But we need to self-assess, where am I and how can I take the next steps? If I'm down here, maybe I haven't given anything anywhere because I just spent it all on me. Let's do a heart check and say, God, help me see, where am I at? What do I need to do to start moving up this ladder so I can live in obedience by tithing regularly and consistently? And what do we do to move up? What kinds of things do we need to cut out? If we're realizing we don't have a lot of extra resources, what can we stop spending money on to free up some of those resources to be able to tithe and to be able to live generously? Maybe you don't actually need a Netflix, Max, Spotify, whatever account. Maybe you don't, or Amazon Prime, whatever it is. Maybe you don't need to buy 3 to 10 coffees a week that cost $10 each. Maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you don't need a new car. Maybe you can spend several hundred, well, I guess maybe not anymore. Maybe just 1,000 or so on a used car with less insurance. Maybe you don't need a car at all. Think through, what are you spending money on and how can you better steward it? Talk to God through the process. Talk to your parents in the process and see what He has called us to. And lastly, I want to encourage you. This is a journey. This is a journey. It's not a race. It's not a competition. This is a journey of generosity, like a journey up the ladder. What steps can you take down that path towards growing in it with Christ and honoring Him with what He's given you?
All right. Okay, we're gonna close, and I'm gonna read Matthew 15. Okay, Matthew 15 is the parable of the talents. Okay, you probably are familiar with this. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. And so also the one who had 2 talents gained 2 more. But the one who received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. And after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. The man who received 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with two talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. And then the man who received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you had not sown and gathered where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and I hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. And his master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I had not sown and gather where I had not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put the money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has, will be taken from him. So, let's talk about the parable here. So, in the parable, who's the master in that parable? Yeah, God. Are we all? Everyone agree to that? Okay. Who are the servants?
She needs one, and then
Us, believers. So he's calling believers to himself, and he's saying, "Hey, I'm going to entrust you with some money." Okay. Does everyone have a coin? Okay, so like we gave you this coin. This is we want it to be a visible and tangible reminder about the talent that God has given you and that he wants you to use to steward and manage on his behalf. Okay, so don't lose that coin. Okay, take it home and put it somewhere where you study or do your homework, or maybe you tape it to your bathroom mirror. I don't know. Wherever you're going to see that occasionally, we want that as a reminder to you that you are God's steward of his treasure. Okay? So, a couple things on this parable. The first one is the amount of money that the servants got, it doesn't matter. Right? He gave 1 5, he gave 1 2, and gave 1 1. If the amount mattered, he would have given the same amount to everyone, but they each had different abilities. So don't worry about the amount, okay? What does matter in the parable is what did the servants do with that money, okay? And that's what we've been talking about this morning. God has been generous with us. As believers, you need to be generous with God, okay? And at the end of the parable, the master always returns, right? He always comes back and he's going to settle accounts with us. And I know everyone in this room wants to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. I gave you a talent, you doubled it, good job. Okay, so some of you might be in this room and you might be thinking, okay, Ryan, I work 10 hours a week, I make $10 an hour, it's $100. If I tithe 10% of that, that's $10. Does it really matter? Is that even going to move the needle? And I'm telling you, it will move the needle in your spiritual life. And God will take whatever it is, whatever talent he has given you, he will use it, he will infuse it, and he will advance his kingdom. The amount does not matter, okay? So I want to share one more parable. So the parable of the steward, Jesus talking to his disciples, and he says, if you are honest with a little, you will be honest with much. If you are dishonest with a little, you will be dishonest with much. You can't serve 2 masters. You're either going to love one and you're going to hate the other. You can't serve both God and money. So the idea here, what I'm trying to communicate is, all of you right now are at a point where you have a little, all right? You don't have full-time jobs. You'll get there. You'll graduate from high school. You'll get a job, and you'll have real money. But don't think that once I have a real job, I'm going to start tithing and being generous with God. Because that's not what this parable says. If you are not honest with the little that you have, that he's given you right now, nothing magical is going to happen when you graduate from college or high school or whenever you start working where you're magically just going to start giving to God. You want to develop the habits right now when you have a little, And it's probably even going to be a little easier for you to do it. Because I think, this is my opinion, that the more money you have, the more difficult it is to release that money. But if you develop the habits right now where you got your part-time job, 10% right off the top, it's a good habit that you want to get in. So we're trying to encourage you to do that, and you can do it, and God will meet your need financially. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, we're going to do one last thing together. Put everything away except that coin. Put it all away, pack it up, so we've got just that coin in our hands. Pack it up, pack it in.
Oh, lost the coin.
Okay. I want you to take that coin and look at it. So like Ryan said, we want this coin to represent the resources that God has given you. And I want you to, either while you're looking at that coin or close your eyes if you want, to prayerfully consider, talk to God. God, what do you want me to do with the resources you have given me? This is all yours. How do you want me to honor you with it? Take a minute right now, talk to God. Heavenly Father, thank you for what you have given us, your Son. God, thanks that you are a God of abundant generosity. Thanks that you model it for us in ways that we barely even understand. God, help us to take this idea of stewardship, especially in the area of our finances, seriously, and help us to prayerfully consider where are we on this journey, and help us see where and how we can take next steps. God, give us wisdom and clarity. Help us honor you in this area of our life. God, thanks for everybody here. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.